As we mentioned, a lot of big news over the last few days, everything from terror-related attacks at a Texas contest to protests and riots in Baltimore after a man died in police custody. U.S. Senator Mark Warner joins us today. We're going to talk about some of those headlines. Thank you so much for joining us, Senator.
Sure, thanks for having me.
First of all, why are you in town today?
Well, I was actually in town this morning with the governor and Senator Kaine, where we were advocating for more startup enterprises in Richmond, more of the entrepreneurial culture. I mean, there's a whole new area of the economy called the so-called gig economy, people who cobble together, being an Uber driver and a part-time IT consultant. How do we find a way for them to be more active in our economy? And as somebody who was an entrepreneur longer than I've been a politician, advocating for startups is something that I'm very supportive of.
Getting people back to work, that's a good thing. We had a story about the police shootout in Texas, and it has been tied into ISIS in that ISIS claimed on Twitter that the shooting was done by two pro-ISIS people. What is the federal government doing to kind of help keep us safe? Because we're seeing a lot more homegrown terrorism that's tied in to what's going on overseas.
Well, we are, and I sit on the Intelligence Committee, and I think when we look overall, with the exception of the tragedy in Boston a year or so past, we have been, I think, extraordinarily lucky that we've managed to go for more than a decade without the kind of homegrown terrorists that we're seeing take place in Europe. ISIS sets actually obviously a new low in terms of how awful this group is. They're also very savvy at using social media, so the fact that they may have tweeted out something about these individuals doesn't mean they were necessarily ISIS associated. But remember, ISIS's goal is to try to spread fear. And what we have to do is, I think, always be vigilant. I think I know there's controversy about some of the NSA programs that have been in the past, monitoring particularly foreigners' conversations. Some of that has actually helped prevent actions in this country. But we also have to recognize that in a world that is increasingly diverse, there's no 100% guarantee of safety. And we have to balance, I think, always our civil liberties with this sense of maintaining safe communities. I think we've done generally a good job. One of the things I think we need to do more of is we actually have to collaborate more with our allies around the world. We're seeing much more of these kind of activities take place in Europe, and let's face it, Europe for a lot of years was not as vigilant as we've been. I think they're now seeing so many people come back from Syria and the Middle East, going back into countries like France. We need to have this being a more united worldwide front against these terrorist cells.